So another week down, and the weeks just seem to get more and more busy as we get closer to summer. So with that said, drop your questions below if you want a bit of airtime and or an answer. On to the first. So then, last week, I jumped all over Patrick Klein for saying that he could hear the difference between two mics on his HP laptop speakers. And well, I didn't hold back. And the reference I used to lambaste him was the frequency response graph for one of the best sounding laptops on the market, the 15-inch MacBook Pro. Now, I was wrong. That is not the best sounding laptop on the market. And I wanted to see if we could hear the difference through a really good laptop. And Dylan had that very thing.
So this is a Dell Precision 5570 developer laptop.
Oh, this is an expensive... Oh, dude, you're going to make me look better on an expensive laptop.
Yeah, so this is the big feller. For laptop speakers, it's certainly better than like Lenovo's that I've used. Again, this is like a $5,000-$6,000 machine. So if you can't tell on these, you're not going to be able to tell on a $400 budget machine speaker.
I think I'm screwed. I think I'm actually screwed.
Like that was just a flex and unnecessary. Again, as I said,
58.
I stand behind.
God damn it!
58. I'm guessing I was right.
Damn it! So then I should say, with the actual proof that it is possible to tell the difference on a laptop, I should issue an apology. Patrick, I'm very sorry for the things I said about you, especially the stuff about your mom when the camera was off. All jokes aside though I still doubt the validity of being able to hear the difference between two mics on a random HP laptop, as I can't hear the difference through mine, the fact that it is actually possible through any laptop whatsoever is proof that it can be done. So with that in mind, I retract my comments. N2 is kicking this off with his comment, and he says, one of the tips you often give is to try several mics out that find the one that works the best for your voice. Makes sense, but how? What's the best way to compare mics without dropping a few $1,000s to buy them in the first place? Thank you, N2, and that is a real tough one. Not because there isn't an answer, but usually where you are is the determining factor. You see, if you walk into most stores with cash in hand, they'll let you try out the mics and A/B them. Of course, the money in hand thing is key. I know here in Canada, Long and McQuaid are really good for it, but I can't speak to the stores that are in your general area. So if you are in that boat, your choices become more and more limited. Now, you mentioned more expensive mics, which kind of hamstrings you even more, but Amazon, it can be your friend. Order the mic or mics and then A/B them. Send the one back that you don't want. Now, there is a bit of a saving grace here, and it takes a good ear to spot this one. You can also listen to other people on the microphones you want. Find someone with similar mouth sounds to you and take note of their impressions of the microphone. That isn't always perfect, but if you do enough legwork, you should be able to whittle it down pretty easy. Thanks for the question. Next up, we got Mo Thermodynamics, that's a rough name to get through, with an interesting question. He said, sorry if it's kind of obvious, but I'd like to know. Does 32-bit float through the UAC 232 provide peak protection for any recording equipment connected to it? And yes, Mo, yes it does. But there is a caveat here. So 32-bit float is literally just headroom, and it's offered up by the interface and the plausible cooperation of your DAW. So anything getting to the interface will get the same 32-bit float goodness, but you can still overdrive things like mics and amps. If they reach their limitations, you can still introduce distortion into the signal. That is something that I don't hear a lot of people mentioning. 32-bit float isn't a full-on get-out-of-jail-free card for blasting sound. It is a great tool though, and if you're just looking for some of that protection, it will literally work with any source. Cheers and thanks for the question. Next up is Sifo81, and they're asking about latency. Hi, thanks for the review. I want to talk about latency. Many people say it is very good. Thank you, Sifo81, and boy, has it been a hot minute since we've talked about latency. And there is a good reason for that. You see, it really isn't an issue anymore on any current interfaces. It really hasn't been for a couple years. Now, that doesn't mean that all interfaces are latency free. It just means that all the gear has gotten much better, and even our computers in the USB protocol has opened way up. But there will always be some kind of latency, as nothing is perfectly instantaneous. But the question is it perceivable? Well, probably not. For example, the Air 192.4 that you're talking about has a latency of 2.59 milliseconds. That is a number that very few people will be able to hear. Now, a lot of people say that latency up to 15 milliseconds is imperceptible, though I don't necessarily agree with that. I do know a lot of musicians that can hear it well below that, and even if they can't hear it, they can actually feel it. But at 2.59 milliseconds, even the best of musicians and the best of ears wouldn't be able to see that. So I don't think you're going to have any problems. And frankly, that pretty much goes for any modern interface these days. Cheers and thanks for helping out with my video. And before we get to the bad take of the week, let's have a nice little distraction. Birdo606 returning from the last video, and he wants to know where I got my shirt from that video. Now, if you're wondering, I got it from Lucky Jeans, and I absolutely love the shirt. But like many of the shirts from Lucky, it kind of wears poorly over time and is almost see-through now. Also, the type of jersey blend that it is, it holds all the smells in, meaning my wife doesn't actually let me wear it for very long. It's a pity. Thanks, Birdo. And the bad take of the week comes from FPG, and they say, I am an audio nut. I've tried almost every mic under $400, including the SM7B, and I'll say right now, the XM8500 is basically just a $20 SM58. The audience doesn't care. As long as they can hear you and it doesn't sound like crap. I had to edit that, by the way. And let me just start with this. You are somewhat correct. For spoken word, it generally won't matter as long as it isn't extremely uncomfortable to listen to. Most people won't have an issue. Content will always be more important than microphone differentials. The problem is, you do realize there's a whole world of other stuff out there other than just podcasts, right? People use microphones for other things too, and in those circumstances, there's a bevy of things to take into consideration. Consider the video you commented on, the SM58 versus the XM8500. The 8500 has horrendous off-axis rejection and suffers greatly as a live mic due to it. There are also other things to consider. Handling noise, different voices reacting to different frequency responses. People have a variety of reasons to buy microphones, and that's okay. But your advice is literally just bad advice for almost everyone except for podcasters. Remember, the SM58 isn't legendary because the whole industry is less intelligent than you. Glad the XM8500s work for you, your voice, and your setup. But don't feel the need to shame people that are willing to invest more into their setup. Also, for you specifically, please clean up your language in the comments section. It's a tad embarrassing. Cheers, and thanks for watching.